what we have here is a 2005 Honda Pilot. I couldn't find any videos on doing the ignition, replacing the ignition. Found lots of people trying to sell you on how to replace them, but none to show you how to do it. So I'm going to make a video real quick. I already did it, so I'm just going to go over what I did, but I left it apart so you can see. The ignition, what happened is I put the key in and tried to turn it. It won't turn in the ignition at all. It was stuck. The tumblers inside got jammed up or something, and it seemed like a lot of people online have the same problem. So the solution was to bring it to Honda or bring it to a locksmith. The locksmith wanted $400. Honda dealership wanted $650 to replace it, so I figured I'd try to do it myself. So what I did is I bought a ignition off of eBay for 60 bucks from a junkyard. You can also go to car-parts.com, searches all the junkyards in the US, and you can usually find one on there under 100 bucks. To replace the ignition, there's the plastic cowl that's usually over this part here. There's only 3 bolts. You get them from underneath. It's pretty straightforward. There's just 3 Phillips screws. Once you get those 3 screws off, this is what you'll see, the column. I found lots online about 2 bolts that you would have to cut a slot into. Those bolts are actually... Oh, I hooked everything back up. Trying to show them to you. Well, they're underneath this wiring harness. They're right underneath it. They're flat-headed bolts to make it hard for you to steal the ignition. Actually, here's one right here. So it looks like this. I don't know if you can see that very clearly. Try outside. Okay, so you see it's flat. What I did is I took a punch. You see those dots in there? I punched little divots into this and spun it with a punch. It actually took me like 5 minutes each one. They were pretty easy to get out with a punch and a hammer. So I would recommend doing that. Some people talked about cutting slots in it with a cutoff wheel and then using a flathead screwdriver. I didn't want to put a cutoff wheel up by all those wires, and the punch works very well. It took me less than 5 minutes per bolt. And then I took these bolts to a hardware store and replaced them with Allen head bolts. That way I can take them in and out much easier. To replace the ignition though, once you replace it, you can see the new one's in. There's 2 other Phillips screws that you need to remove to replace the ignition. It comes right out. Make sure you disconnect your battery when you're doing this. I was told to by the dealership. I don't know if it makes a difference or not. But once you put the used ignition in, your car will not start because the ignition needs to be paired with the ECU. So you're going to have to take your car to a Honda dealership. So that's the other sucky part about doing it this way, is hopefully you have AAA to be able to tow it to a Honda dealership. And then the dealership charged me a half-hour labor. It was $62 to have the ignition program. So I paid $60 for the ignition, $62 to have Honda program it, and voila, for $120 put my own ignition in. Way better than the $650 Honda wanted or the $400 the locksmith wanted. And the only downfall to this is the locks on the doors are not programmed, but I think anybody with a Honda EXL probably has power locks, so your fob, you can program the fob that came with the key for your ignition to work the doors. Just keep the spare key just in case you need it. If your battery goes dead, you'll need a key to unlock the doors, but how often does that really happen? So that's about it. Yeah, replacing the ignition in an 05 Pilot, pretty simple. It should take you about an hour tops to put it in and take it out and put the new one in. And the hardest part is those round bolts, and they're at the top of the steering column, and I showed you what they look like. Just use a punch to pull them out. So have fun and good luck doing it. Alright, bye.